Good morning, everybody. It is a great day to have a great day. Shout out to Ryan Isaac in the chat. He says he's looking forward to his morning investigation into the ASTROLABE. What's up, Duffhead? He's just killing it with the ASTROLABE lately, Matt. Big fan of these shows. Well, good. I'm glad. I'm really enjoying this. It's a great way to build up my morning. Come on here, chat with you guys, share with you some stuff that's making me laugh, some stuff that's making me think, and getting the opportunity to shout out some people that I enjoy, that I get a lot of value from. It's good to see you guys this morning. This is going to be interesting. I have got probably the most tabs I've ever had open for a show. Not all of them are going to be long, deep dives necessarily, so we should be able to still squeeze this in under 2 hours. However, my wife is currently on an important call out in the loft out there, and she doesn't want me to disturb her, distract her at all, and I've got to pee. So we're going to see how this goes. This may be interesting. It's possible I may have to duck out briefly partway through the show. So if I do, then you guys will have to excuse me. I am currently sitting here at my desk with my feet on an earthing mat. What is an earthing mat, you say? Well, it's for grounding yourself. And I think we need to bring back the hippies. We need to redeem the hippies, because some of them have definitely been onto something for a while. I got really exposed to the, say, I don't know, alternative health scene during the recent unpleasantness of the last 4 or so years, and man, I found some crazy stuff in there. This is some good schizo stuff. Like for example, now this is a phrase I definitely can't say. So how can I talk around this? There's a thing. Well, maybe I can just spell it. So virus, that particular thing. There is a very strong case to be made that it is not an infectious thing. It is not our model of what that is completely broken and wrong, and that it's its own unique thing that is produced by the body when it's put under some kind of stress. It's like a signal that the body is encountering a stressor. So the whole contagiousness model is kind of a more broken, I don't know, like over materialized understanding of what's going on. And that was one interesting rabbit hole I've been down. There's some really interesting stuff coming out of those spheres, and one of them that has become very evidently true to me is the value of grounding. We are fundamentally like electrical beings. We have an electrical current flowing through us. We have our own frequency, and the Earth itself has a frequency as well. So part of us remaining, I don't know, plugged in, attached to reality, engaging in reality in the truest sense, part of that involves being having our current grounded to the earth. There's probably some deep, pretty profound spiritual implications to all of this, which we may explore on future schizo streams. But so one of the things that last year in the summer I get recurring migraines. I think I have a herniated disc in my neck, and so probably every 4th or 5th day I'll wake up with a really bad headache, and sometimes it's worse, sometimes it's not as bad. But either way, basically by the end of the day, I just need to lay down, and there's not much else I can do. And last summer, I was going through a pretty bad stretch where I was getting them very often, and I saw someone posting on Twitter about grounding, just going out and walking barefoot in the sand or the grass or the mud or something like that. And I was like, oh, what the hell? I'll try it. I saw people doing like they would take like the little meter, and they would like test their own charge, and then they would step in the grass and their charge would completely change. And so I was like, okay, there seems to be something here. I'll give it a shot. So I started going out each day and spending. It would actually end up being like a couple hours often, just pacing around and standing in the grass. And whether I was listening to something or talking to someone on the phone, I would just be barefoot in the grass. And I started finding very quickly that if I stayed there for 20 or 30 minutes and I had a headache coming on, it wouldn't eliminate the headache, but it would definitely recede. And I get these often enough that I'm very familiar with their patterns of progression. So it was very obvious that something was drawing back, and it wasn't proceeding as it had as it would have normally. And I also found that my head would be a lot clearer after a while. And it's hard to tell, is that from nicotine? Is that from caffeine? Is that from engaging conversation? Is it from fresh air? There's a whole bunch of different things that it could be attributed to. But the more that I've learned and read about grounding and earthing and such things, the more there's something very legitimately going on here. So Duffhead says, have to admit, I'm actually using a grounding mat right now too. Team grounding mat. So a good buddy of mine, you've seen him in here a few times, Mitchell. I'd sent him some schizo streams to listen to, and he went down this rabbit hole with earthing, and he was like, hey, what the hell? I'm just going to buy an earthing mat. And so he bought the same one I got. It's like $30 off of Amazon. And I ordered it late last night, had it delivered at like 5 o'clock this morning. And so I've got my feet on it right now, and I'm very curious to see what happens with this. What he reported to me is, so he got one for by his desk, just this cheap like $30 one to sit by his desk. And all it does is it's just like a conductive mat that has a cord that attaches to it, and then it grounds into the electrical outlet. And it's not like drawing electricity or anything. I don't think it just grounds over there. You could also do this, like I've seen people that they put a stake in the ground and they wrap a copper wire on it, and then they run it up into their house and attach it to their bedpost or that sort of thing. And maybe that's a more authentic, clear signal, or I don't know. But he said he plays a lot of golf, and he's got a bad elbow that flares up on him every morning when he wakes up. His elbow is all sore and stiff, and so he bought one of these and went to bed at 10 p.m. He got one. There's like a $150 one or something like that you put under your bed, and he went to bed about 10 p.m. And he woke up at 4 a.m. just wide awake, super energized, no pain in his elbow whatsoever. And he had an Apple Watch that he wears while he's sleeping that tracks his sleep cycles. And usually if he sleeps for 7 or 8 hours, he'll get like 2 hours of deep sleep. He slept for 6 hours and he got 4 hours of deep sleep. He has never had that much before. So clearly it's done something. And one of the things that he was telling me about, that he sent me some links to listen to for myself, which I'm going to do this afternoon. But one of the things that he was telling me about is that there's been a ton of studies done that have shown that animals in the wild have zero incidence of cancer or heart disease. They just don't happen at all. But domesticated animals have it basically at like similar rates to humans. And one thing this potentially is attributable to is the fact that an animal that's out walking around in the woods and the streams and the meadows, they're constantly grounded. They're constantly attached directly to the earth, grounding themselves on the earth. So this basically facilitates smooth current flow through their bodies. I don't know what any of this actually does. I just know that there's something there. One of the studies he told me about was they had someone, they did like a blood draw on them, and then they looked at their blood under a microscope, and there was this clumping effect on their red blood cells. And then they went and they walked in the sand barefoot for 10 minutes and came back and did it again, and the clumping effect was completely gone. I've heard this with water as well, that there's something about water that if it isn't allowed to flow freely, then like if you have like your pipes in your house that are all these 90-degree angles, then the water molecules have this weird clumping effect when they go around like 90-degree turns or bends. And you could see some of this effect potentially in the fact that, for example, a cat will not drink out of still water. If it's the only thing available to them, then they will eventually, but they'll be generally kind of dehydrated because they don't want to drink out of still water. But if you have a dripping faucet, or like the toilet flushes, or you have a faucet running, then they come and hang out around you because they want the flowing water. There's something about the flowing water that is structured properly to be most bioavailable. And all of this all has to do with electrical conductivity and all that sort of thing. So yesterday Mitch he went and did his played golf, and usually by the 15th, 16th, 17th hole, he's starting to drag. He's getting tired, and that's a lot of walking, a lot of swinging, all that sort of thing. He had no back pain. He had no elbow pain. He was not tired at all, like full energy. Hit the end of I think he did like 100 balls in the driving range before he played, and then he was just full of energy in the evening. And this was just from laying on it once. One other interesting thing he mentioned is that he was related to the animals. He has a dog. His dog's kind of a yappy dog, and typically when he gets home, the dog meets him at the door, comes running downstairs, is all excited to see him and yapping, "Who's it?" and gets all excited. And he got home and the dog was nowhere to be seen. He couldn't find him. He was walking around calling him, trying to figure out where he was. And this is the wife's dog. He sleeps on the wife's side of the bed. He sits in the wife's seat on the couch, and he he's looking for the dog, can't find him anywhere, and he goes upstairs, and the dog's laying on the bed. And he doesn't like jump down and come see him or anything. He just sort of rolls over on his back and he's wagging his tail and he's all happy, but he's just laying there. And he realized the dog's laying on his side of the bed, not on his wife's side of the bed. So his dog was laying on this earthing mat that's laying on his side of the bed, and he just was staying there. He just wants to sleep on it. So there's something going on there. I don't know. So I bought myself an earthing mat, and I've got my feet on it right now. We're going to see how this goes. If I start noticing some sort of a change from it, then I'm definitely going to be getting the one for my bed. Because if this could do something about the headaches, help me sleep better, more energy in the morning, not taking as long to wake up, that would be a big deal. Xavier says, or still water equals parasite and bacteria home, and flowing water equals less likely home. Potentially, yeah, that could be an element to it as well. So speaking of energy flows and maximizing your morning routines, I've got something else for you guys to add to your morning routine here. Let's share the screen. So this guy here, his name is Certified Health Nut or something, Troy, something or other. I can't remember. Here's what to add to your morning routine.
Oh.
This is the life here. This is what I want. Wake up in the morning, go out, light a fire, and stand around the fire, slapping yourself in the balls. This is manhood. So I posted this. I said, "Yes, sir, Mr. Bra, sir," because the chief of the timeline, Soul Bra, said, "Slap your balls for 2 minutes and then tell me you have low energy. Doesn't happen." And Spurgler Acolyte says, "My balls hurt." And he said, "Doing it too hard. You just need a slight discomfort to activate the chi energy." And there was I think there was another there was another reply in here that he elaborated a little further. I don't remember what it was. I don't know, man. There seems to be a little something to it. Now, obviously, you don't want to slap it so much that you don't want to slap yourself too hard. But I haven't worked up the nerve to incorporate this into my morning routine yet. But if this earthing thing works, that's going to really expand my my willingness to believe these sorts of things. I wouldn't at all be surprised. I mean, you slap your face, to kind of wake yourself up. You might like slap yourself on the chest or something. So, slapping your balls maybe this is how you get the microplastics out. You got to slap the microplastics out of your balls. I think it's a worthy endeavor, and for the sake of science, we need to do some experiments on ourselves. Another, what Ryan Isaac says, not only slapping himself, but doing it for the algo. Yeah, that's right. Hope that behavior's not a side effect of grounding. You guys are great. All right, here's another one. This is a continuation of White Boy Summer. You're going to notice a theme here. So, yeah, I'm just gonna play it. It speaks for itself.
What up, Council? We are the founding members of the Perineum Sun Club, a club dedicated to spreading awareness for sunning your taint. This is a holistic practice, and the vitamin D boost aligns your chakras and boosts your stoke. This past weekend, our beautiful club ventured out to Black's Beach in San Diego with one goal in mind: to break the record, the world record, for group perineum sunning. The government went out of its way to stop us, even trying to create rain. 26 beautiful souls joined us as we grabbed our ankles defiantly in the face of victory. We're proud to say that we broke the record, and it was confirmed by Guinness, the world record people. But even with our record, we need more to legitimize our cause. A cause that, if taken seriously, could save lives. That is why, Council, we are asking you to join us for our next group sunning. We'll be at El Matador Beach in Malibu during the solar eclipse at noon. There's no money in this for you, only justice.
Oh
We're at
man!
council.
Oh, look at this! Look at this! Look at the
There's
logo.
no money in this for you.
Oh man, I love the internet, man. You guys are amazing. The world record people. Just so you know, the world record people. You can tell he has this. The whole thing is all written out. He's got all of his jokes pre-prepared. This is a wonderful evolution of stand-up comedy. That's exactly who I thought of, Kate. Alex Stein. Alex Stein is like the forerunner of this brand of stand-up comedy. But I will never cease to be amazed at the absolute creativity of autistic guys on the internet, especially when they begin expanding outside of the internet. It does look like a Y-wing. Okay. Now, for something that is equally absurd, check this. Actually, I think the ball sunning is probably less absurd than this. But this one, I cannot believe this is real. But the fact that this is real, and the fact that there are people who sit and consume this content unironically, this is the holdover of the boomers. The people that sit around and they watch these shows and they're like, this is real life. Remember we talked the other day about how your brain can't differentiate between what you're seeing on a TV screen and actual like real life. Your subconscious brain perceives it as real life, even if it's being presented cinematically. And the mass mind control device that has been Hollywood and paired with the mass media is next level. Future generations are going to marvel at the sheer expertise on display that you could get people to believe absolutely profoundly insane things, particularly if you ingrain a little bit of truth in them. And I think there's a little bit of truth in this, but obviously they're taking a little bit of truth and they're distorting it. So here, let's play this. This is from a TV show. I can't remember what the TV show is called. It's been around for several years. And it's funny that this clip is just now going viral.
Make yourself comfortable. There's a couch over there.
Hey, is he okay?
Yeah, he's okay. I had Cephas answer some questions from a Harvard test known as
All right, so here you've got the medical professional wearing the skinny jeans, and he's a like this. What's the there's like a disease or like a condition associated with this, like the super skinny legs and the kind of bulbous belly, and I can't remember what it's called. He's got this puffy face, and like this is supposed to be the medical professional. This is the guy whose expertise is in human health.
rest. It is designed to measure someone's level of social resistance.
Social resistance.
When people like us oppose the values and policies of the dominant culture.
So this is something that especially if you've watched a lot of this and you just sort of kind of take it in, you don't really pick up on these sorts of things, but the dialogue patterns in these kinds of shows are completely unrealistic. So like he comes out, he's giving his little monologue to her, and she asks a question and she jumps in dramatically. And it's what's it called? Expositional dialogue, where it's really lazy script writing, where they're like, we need you to understand this concept as a plot device, so we're going to really awkwardly shoehorn it in. And you'll get this when often in shows, especially these TV shows, when they go, they'll have people like two experts, maybe two cops or two investigators or something, and they're like running to a scene and they're talking about what they're going to see there. And one of them says, oh, maybe this will be an example of blah, 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 insert technical term. And the other person will go, oh, you mean where blah, 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 and blah, 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 and blah, 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 blah. And they'll explain the term. We're like, if these were two people who were actually doing this, like there would never be a conversation like this. This is a clear marker of not just propaganda, but like really, really awkward, clumsy propaganda. And you can see by her body language here, she's like explaining it, and she's like she's jumping in. Oh, hey, this is a thing I know, but interesting. How are you connecting this? You know, she's not fully in the know here. She's the extra expert on the side who's going to reaffirm everything he's saying. Watch her facial expression and tone of voice.
Of the dominant culture.
That's right.
of the us oppose the values and policies of the dominant culture.
That's right.
Oh, and she's British too, so that means she's an extra expert.
What does that have to do
Your son, he feels threatened on a daily basis. Like everything he's earned can just be taken away. He's disenfranchised.
He's disenfranchised. He feels threatened every day on a daily basis.
But because his life is seemingly free from all this, because he can't name it, he's internalizing it.
Name what?
Racism. I think your son's tumor was caused by racism.
Oh, she's shaken. The black British doctor is shaken. His tumor was caused by racism. And then, of course, you have the musical drop, the pensive, thoughtful music. Oh, the tumor was caused by racism. Now, what's really interesting here is I think that this isn't as completely far out. There's like an actual basis for this, that these sorts of health conditions can be associated with the internalization of and suppression of negative emotion. If you have some kind of resentment or fear or any of these sorts of things, like your body is going to manifest responses to this. The V word I mentioned a little bit ago, that I think is a similar dynamic. Your body has markers that it gives off when there's some sort of a dysfunction, whether that dysfunction is a physical, material dysfunction, or if it's more spiritual, metaphysical, emotional. People are very, human beings are very complicated assemblages of various different internetwork systems. And we're kind of like, we're the barrier or the mediating factor between the spiritual and the physical. This is exactly how and why humanity exists. Taylor says, as if these people are a Borg with a singular monolithic mind that's much more orchestrated and impressive than it actually is. Qwerty YZZ7 says, I must be full of tumors then. Ryan Isaac says, like an ulcer. Yeah, an ulcer is a much easier thing to understand. Like if you get really stressed out, like you'll get an ulcer. Not everybody will, but this is a very common indication of this sort of thing. You begin physically manifesting your spiritual condition. This is part of why physiognomy is such a hard science, because human beings manifest their spiritual condition in their physical appearance, and that's not just outward; it's inward as well. So I would say this is the part of this that's true is actually it's a very profound truth. This is a big argument in favor of relentless positivity and optimism, because if you're constantly selling your body negativity and pessimism and fear and resentment and anger and hatred and all of these different things, then it's going to make you sick. You're going to be sick. And then the line between physical illness and mental illness or spiritual illness becomes pretty difficult to ascertain. It's kind of one and the same. It's like one condition that's manifesting both spiritually and physically. Now, it is interesting that they do this with the Hispanic lady. Maybe it would be a little too on the nose you have the Hispanic doctor and a black mom, and it's a black kid. Maybe, and I haven't watched the show. Maybe she actually has a black kid. I don't know, but yeah. Cooper says physiognomy and phrenology are the last two hard sciences. Yeah, that's right. Josh, if you build it, racism, they will come. Tumors. Oh, you guys are on it this morning. Taylor Brown, yes. So this is why we white pill. Shout out to Taylor Brown. He is the hype man for the King Pill Discord. You could join the King Pill Discord if you'd like at kingpilled.com. Come join us. We're still trying to get this schizo stream scheduled. I think we might be doing it Friday night at 9 p.m. Central. We're going to see how many people are going to make it. I posted yesterday trying to get responses from people, and everyone ignored me. But when I posted and said that we wanted to do the wanted to actually do it, there was a bunch of people that replied and said they were interested in it. So we'll see what happens. But I'm pretty sure it's either going to happen on Friday night or maybe Saturday afternoon. We'll figure out a time for it. But if that's something you'd be interested in getting involved in and joining us for, then go to kingpill.com and sign up there. And any subscription tier on the website there, any of them will get you access to the Schizo streams. It'll be something for everyone. All right. What do I got here? Oh, another thing. Another some more ball related content. Okay. Guys, you got to be channeling your energy. Check this out. Semen retention has me drawing sacred geometry again. No caffeine, about 20 hours of work so far. Pictures with process. I don't think it's going to work if I try to zoom in on this. No, it doesn't. It's pretty cool. Like, I think it would be really cathartic to just sit down and draw all these things. You could see all the different shapes that are contained within this fractal pattern that he's building out. You can see this. You can see squares. You can see triangles. You can see rectangles. You can see diamonds. You can see, and then all the other octahedron, pentagons. All of them. They're all contained in this lattice work pattern. And this, I think, is there is something to this pattern here that corresponds very closely to, I think, the structure of the ether, if you can even say that. Like, if the ether has a structure. Nobody really knows what the ether is. There's some really interesting theories about it, and it's very obvious there is some kind of ether, and that it follows rules like this. Sacred geometry is like a way that we can understand the structure of the ether, the flow of the ether. So if you too want to be able to see the ether, you've got to retain your seed. I know we've only got a couple of women in here. So women, I'm sorry, I don't know if there's an equivalent to ball slapping for you. I'll leave you guys to figure that out yourself. I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole on the internet. And I don't know what the female, do you guys have any ideas of what the female equivalent to semen retention would be? Or is there anything? Is this a spiritual technology that only men have access to? I would believe it. And maybe if you're addicted to caffeine, perhaps the way to get off of that is semen retention. It genuinely is a very powerful thing. There's the whole subreddit NoFap, which is a very strange corner of the internet, but there's far beyond anecdotal evidence that again, it blurs the line between spiritual and physical. The physical act of retention is actually a spiritually transformative act. What's fasting for a woman? Josiah, that's good. Why not also just semen retention? I think that's a good point. Yeah. You got to figure out a balance here now. The permanent tension between men and women, they're both fighting over the semen retention. Woohoo! Shout out to my wife. She had a very successful call. She is happy. Now I'm free to go to the bathroom if I need to. Still doing okay for now. Yeah, imagine this as a wallpaper for the bathroom. You really would start seeing it everywhere then. Imagine sitting there, you're dropping a deuce and just staring at your wallpaper, and it starts to move. It's starting to like flutter and pulse and breathe. You'd really start seeing that everywhere. Okay. Here's another funny one. This is an email. Ostensibly, I looked and couldn't find any like proof that this is not an email from her, and it very much squares. This is Core Power, some like yoga studio or something like that. This is an email from the Core Power CEO, and she basically copied and pasted directly from the Associated Press's guidance for Juneteenth as published in Politico. Are there special foods served on Juneteenth? Aside from barbecue, the color red has been a through line for Juneteenth food for generations. Red symbolizes the bloodshed and sacrifice of enslaved ancestors. A Juneteenth menu might incorporate items like barbecued ribs or other red meat, watermelon, and red velvet cake. Drinks like fruit punch and red Kool-Aid may appear at the table. Oh, man. See, I think there's something about the white lib that is just so charming. They're adorable. They're absolutely adorable. They take themselves so seriously. And they cannot help but memeing themselves. I think this is this is another white pill. Like our enemies, are both retarded and incompetent, and they're also really, really entertaining. Okay. Let's see here. We're burning through these tabs. We got another one. Thank you to Twitter account Faggot Jackass. He posted Donald Trump Bing Bing Bong 2016 compilation. And account Void Phil very helpfully provided us with the compilation. Before I say this, I want to say this. Before I play that, I want to say this. I watched the whole interview yesterday between Trump and Logan Paul and Mike, the guy that Logan had with him. And it's striking. It is, people say there's the narrative, you got two old guys, they're both starting to lose their faculties, and Trump's a little sharper than Biden, but he's still even understanding the media is just full of shit. I still kind of have that latent expectation that he's like Trump's kind of a little out of it. He's a little goofy, This is part of his charm. And you see him in his like formal interviews and stuff where he's a little aloof kind of, which is understandable given the people he's talking to. And I didn't really appreciate the fact that it's been a long time since we've really seen Trump just sit down and chat with someone in a casual sort of non-formal way. And I saw what's the goofy little fruitcake? There's so many of them. The guy with the YouTube channel, big lib guy, takes himself super seriously, does like economics and I can see his skinny little face in my head. No, not Destiny. Density is a good. I like that. I'm not calling him Destiny anymore. I'm calling him Density. David Pakman. David Pakman. I just saw. So at first I tried to search for the interview. I just searched Trump, Logan Paul on YouTube. There's a video with 5 million views that was posted like 4 days ago on Logan Paul's channel featuring Donald Trump. And it was like the 8th result. There was a bunch of media clips talking about various things associated with Trump or Logan Paul or whatever. And it was only like once I got all the way down there, it wasn't a highlighted result or anything. I had to really look and make sure it was actually the interview. And so I started playing it, and it starts off with them just kind of bantering while they're getting set up to sit down, and they each give each other some gifts and everything. And it's striking how sharp Trump is. He's not just sharp for an old guy. He's genuinely very sharp. And the sheer amount of stress he's got to be under. And he's just super casual, chill, laid back, chatting, bantering, in complete control of the conversation the whole time, effortlessly. The two boys are kind of like giggling little schoolgirls, like, we're talking to the president. And which in itself, with a guy as influential as Logan Paul, seeing him like that, being so deferential to Trump that's a pretty profound thing for 5 million people to see. But just the entire conversation is so. Well, that's what I was going to say with David Pakman. He was like, Trump says nothing. Trump gives a long interview and says absolutely nothing. And I'm like, how do you possibly have that takeaway? Like, how can you manage to hold these thoughts in your head and still be able to like actually make your pee hit the toilet? It doesn't, or tie your shoes or whatever. He says so much, and he says so much sometimes in what he doesn't say. You can tell very clearly when there's a question that he knows more about, and he very effortlessly just deflects from it and takes it in a different direction. And he still is very interesting and says interesting things, and he doesn't make it look like he's like, I can't talk about that. So he is firing on all cylinders. There is no question about it. There is no mental slowing down whatsoever with Trump at all. And particularly being under the amount of stress that he's under. And even in the interview, they're like, toward the end, Logan is like, all right, I just got your team over there just gave me the 10 minutes sign. And Trump stops. He's like, no. He's just we're having a good time. Push the stuff back. Let's go do another 20 minutes. Yeah. And they're, okay. And so then they keep going. But yeah, he's just, I've been a huge Trump fan for a long time. I just think he's the funniest person I've ever seen, and I've believed he's genuinely smart, intelligent, sharp, good leader, all these sorts of things. But seeing him in that element, having this conversation with these guys, and being able to just like effortlessly call up different historical, cultural references and speak at length in interesting ways about a whole wide variety of things, you could tell why everybody who's ever around Trump likes him. So now I'm just going to let you guys appreciate this.
Sitting there tweeting, bing, bing, bing. You press a button, bing, bing. They all hand you checks, bing, 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 bing. We had our beautiful Marine standing there, bing, 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 bing. You know, in the old days, bing, bong. You know, with the map, bing, bing, bing. Little mouth on him, bing, 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 bing. Bing, 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 they're cleaning up. Fix it up, bing, bing, bing. A 14-point plan, bing, bing, bing. Anthony Weiner, you know, the little bing, bing, bing. Everyone's attacked me has gone bing. Everyone else, bing. Where have they gone? Bing. Wow, what a tackle. Bing. Playing cards. Bing, bing, bing. Those tunnels. Bing, boom. Right under the toilet. Bing, boom. Right up. Bing. Like a rocket ship, except in the wrong direction. I'd fly over, drop them right on top. You know, just bing. They want me to use the pump. Because the other one, which I really like better than going bing, bing, bing. It's like puppets. Bing, 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 bong, bong, bing, bing, bing. The bing, bing, bang, bang, bong. I was imitating puppets, and I said, maybe I shouldn't do that anymore. Bye, bing. Bing, that's the end of that. You know, it's the only thing he can say.
So Vice produced this video in 2017. And that really kind of blurs the line between, like, at that time, like, did they see themselves as doing this as like a critique? Is this them trying to own him? Because this is back when everyone had was getting into max TDS territory, or is this, you know, like when you understand how the whole media world works, how they operate and function, like the vast majority of the rage bait and stuff that they traffic in, and coming up with all these different funny stories and trying to like him with the Japanese prime minister and like dumping out the fish and everything. Like some of these things, if you're someone who has an intuition for media, you see this and you're like, this is going to be the thing everyone's going to click on. This is going to be the thing everyone wants to see. And that sort of thing is like, it's even more fundamental than whatever political message you're trying to send. It's something that just hits you on a gut level that this is just funny. This is just great content. And then we're gonna backfill whatever political message we need to go along with it. But this is just such a if you were to produce a video like this, thinking you're gonna make him unlikable or make people not want to hear more from him or see more of him, even if people don't agree with him or don't like him, they still want to see more of him. They will watch videos with him in it. They're absolutely captivated by him as a person. He's such a unique, singular person that there's just an inevitability about him, which is why he's so anti-fragile. He's genuinely probably in like the top 5 most interesting people to ever exist. Centuries from now, Trump is going to be an iconic figure. People are going to talk about Trump and refer to Trump. He is permanently embedded in the human consciousness. He's such a singular person. Trump's performance was also criticized. Mick LaSalle of the San Francisco Chronicle compared his mannerisms in the film to those of Benito Mussolini. What's that from, Javier? You're quoting from something. Which film? Ryan Isaac says the only reason people would dislike this is if they are proud. Yeah, he's a good mirror to people. If you take yourself too seriously, then you're not going to be able to let yourself like someone like this, even if you're obsessed with them, even if you can't stop paying attention to them and signal boosting every single thing they do. This is for Ghosts Can't Do It. Let's see. I saw you say something about that up here, I think. I saw something with Ghosts Can't Do It recently. Okay, we got a Wikipedia page. It's not going to, the link isn't going to open for me, so we're going to do a little sidebar here. Ghosts Can't Do It. Oh, interesting. Okay, so here, let's share this. Never heard of this before. This is a nice little rabbit hole for me to go down later. Ghosts Can't Do It is a 1989 romantic fantasy comedy film Last film written and directed by John Derek, starring Bo Derek and Anthony Quinn. The film was panned by critics and was a box office disappointment. Donald Trump's appearance as himself earned a Golden Raspberry Award for Worst Supporting Actor. Trump and Damien were both nominated for Worst New Star, but lost to Sofia Coppola in The Godfather Part 3. The film also won the Worst Picture, Worst Actress, and Worst Director. Good grief. Interesting. So what was that review here that you posted a quote from, Javier? When was that written? Mick LaSalle of the San Francisco Chronicle compared his mannerisms in the film to Benito Mussolini. Oh, here we go. Here's a link for it. Huh. This is interesting. Thank you for this. I'm going to go down this little rabbit hole later. Now I have a movie I have to watch. I haven't watched a movie in so long. Okay. So let's keep plugging through here. Oh, here's another Trump story. So from Chillum, this I actually don't follow him now. I used to. Followed him on Twitter for a long time. Got into, I think it's a her. I don't know. I'll just say she posts a lot of Trump, like Q adjacent Trump stuff. But I appreciate these accounts that will highlight these sorts of things so I don't have to go looking for them myself. So June 18, 2024, published in USA Today. Donald Trump Airport, Trump on the $500 bill. Republicans can't stop honoring ex-president. She says, President Donald Trump on the $500 bill, a congressional gold medal, an international airport. It's the summer of Trump in the House of Representatives where Republican lawmakers have flooded the chamber with bills and resolutions honoring President Trump. And someone had a picture in the replies of a hypothetical $500 bill, and I can't find it now. I saw it earlier. It was pretty interesting. And I think this has to happen. Trump on a $500 bill, it absolutely must happen. And I feel like it's pretty inevitable. There's no way it's not going to happen. It's just this is the arc of history. The arc of history is bending toward Trump on the $500 bill. His name is going to be permanently embedded in the American psychology and in the American economy. Who knows how long the dollar is going to last, but $500 bill. Trump should put his face on all American currency. Can you imagine? Be no surer way of eliminating cash altogether than if Trump put his name on he put his face on all American currency. This is a white pill. Another white pill. The Republicans get it. This is not your daddy's GOP. They're picking up on the meme energy, and this is only going to continue as the 4chan posters continue progressing older and older. Not that everybody on 4chan is a kid, but the vast majority of them are young. It skews young. Your yesterday's 4chan poster is tomorrow's congressman. Whether you see that personally in a positive light or not, I think it's a white pill. And this is exactly the way that these guys should be doing politics. They're a bunch of actors. There's very few of them that are actually substantive accomplishers. So if they could do this sort of thing and just continue pressing the energy forward, then that's all I need out of them. Another Trump-related headline here. Now, The Economist magazine predicts a Trump win in November. The Economist magazine is, of course, not remotely historically associated with Trump liking. But I opened up the article here. It says, The Economist election forecast shows Trump with a 2-3 chance of winning the Electoral College. Former President Donald Trump currently holds a small but clear lead over President Joe Biden in The Economist's 2024 election forecasting model. The Economist model forecasts the odds each candidate has to win the Electoral College in November, and right now Trump stands at a 2-3 chance, while Biden holds a 1-3 chance, according to the model. They explain how they come up with their forecast, saying nothing, noting, our model is updated every day and combines state and national polls with economic indicators to predict the election results across the country. To work out the probable electoral vote totals, we run over 10,000 simulations of the election. The chance of a tie in the Electoral College is less than 1 in 100. Now, what is interesting here Within the spread for the Electoral College, Trump is currently averaging a 300 vote win, while Biden is averaging only 238 out of the 270 votes needed to win, hence the odds skewing toward Trump. The Economist shows the national vote is nearly tied with Trump at 44% and Biden at 43.8%. I don't know what to tell you. If you think that this is what the actual national vote would be in a straight up normal vote, that it's actually split 50-50, you're out of your mind. If it was less than, okay, what is this? 44 plus 43, so 80, say 88%. So taking that 88%, if that 88% itself is not split 65-35, I would be shocked. Like 65 Trump, 35 Biden. I'd be shocked if that is not the case. But it is interesting that they have, even with the national vote being very, very close, they still have Trump well ahead in the Electoral College. Now, obviously, 30 votes is can be made up pretty quickly, depending on the state. But it says it also has Trump with higher odds to win in all of the key swing states: Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Nevada, Arizona, and Georgia. Trump and Biden are running closest in Michigan and Wisconsin. Cooper, you got to get your people under control there. Where Trump has 3 and 5 chances of winning compared to Biden's 2 and 5. But Georgia is a blowout for Trump with 3 and 4 odds of carrying the state Biden narrowly won in 2020. So we're going to continue keeping track of that. And I'm looking forward to all the different ways that I get to say, I told you so, or I was right, because there's going to be many more. I'm just going to leave it at that for now, but there's going to be many more instances of me saying, I told you so, I was right, I called it. I'm not going to be prideful about it. I'm striving for humility, but at the same time, I also want to make my record clear. And I'm feeling very confident that my record is going to bear itself out even more across some other different domains over the next, I don't know, between short and long term. Matt Rush Limbaugh Erickson. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, I am the reincarnation of Rush Limbaugh. Can't you tell? Okay, so now let us pivot to some Elon stories. We keep talking about Elon and Trump. It's almost like they're some important figures in the world right now. And then after I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 different tabs here with Elon, and I've got 1, 2, 3 different tabs with good friend of the show, Auron McIntyre. Love to shout out my buddy here. And then I've got a couple of tabs from Homath talking about women. And then we'll round it off with one from other good friend of the show, Harry Bergeron, Tyson Berg on Twitter. A little bit of inspiration to take you guys through the rest of the day. So let's get back to Elon. What's up, Colin? Good to see you, buddy. So we're going to see a clip here on Elon the Sigma. Tallulah Riley, and this is from a BBC interview in 2022. Tallulah Riley's, Elon said, would you like to come to my hotel room to look at rocket videos? And we did get into his hotel room, and he did just show me rocket videos.
You know, he said, I don't usually do this, but, you know, I'd love to see you tomorrow. Can we meet for breakfast? And we had breakfast, and then at the end of breakfast, he said, will you come and have lunch with me? So then we went for lunch, and then he said, will you come to dinner? And then I remember one evening he said, would you like to come back to my hotel room so we can look at rocket videos? And I thought, I was like, okay, yeah, I'll come back. And we did get into his hotel room, and he did just show me rocket videos. You know, he said, I don't usually do this, but, you know.
Based rocket autism. You could tell that she was digging it, too. So women don't want to be comfortable. You got to know that women are at their best when men are keeping them on their toes. And Elon was keeping her on her toes. She's like, is this a euphemism? I'm going to go back to your hotel room and look at rocket videos? But I guarantee you, she was sitting there just eating up him eating up the rocket videos. Pure Sigma behavior. Elon is the king of the autists. And I say this with great love and affection. He is the great man that we have longed for. I don't know if we deserve him, but we've sure got him. A couple of other Elon related stories as he's getting more and more outspoken in his posting. This one here, let's see, this government program. Okay. So Elon has his little Twitter technique of highlighting things that he wants people to be aware of. Sometimes he just does it with the exclamation point reply to something, and he's been signal boosting some pretty spicy stuff. Josh Ham, Elon respected her so much he showed her multiple YouTube videos. Yes, that is a great sign of respect in his culture. I share that culture, and so I can affirm that is a great sign of respect. Women, all three of you out there, if your man wants to show you a movie or show you a video on YouTube, he is letting you in to his inner sanctum. This is a great sign of respect. This is the deepest sign of respect he could show you. Value it. Don't take advantage of it. So Elon posts, he quote tweets. There's an article here from the Washington Times. Biden's $42.5 billion rural high-speed internet plan gets stuck in red tape. Not a single home connected 3 years after enactment. $42.5 billion plan, not a single home connected 3 years after enactment. Whole Mars catalog says for $42 billion, they could have bought Starlink dishes for 140 million people. The U.S. population is 333 million. It's actually probably much more than that, but the point remains. Elon says this government program is an outrageous waste of taxpayer money and is utterly failing to serve people in need. And this sort of thing is becoming completely undeniable for even the people who once upon a time found Trump off-putting. You know, he doesn't respect our institutions. He's a loose cannon. Well, it's become very evident that what you see is what you get with Trump. And as he has continued to be the same, everything around him is completely degenerated and decayed into just a relentless barrage of stories like this. So all the people who matter, they're not happy about this. They want to live in a country that's productive and competent and stable and secure. They want whoever's going to provide that. And if that means they have to flee into the arms of Trump and Elon, well, a lot of them are already inclined to respect Elon, and Trump is earning their respect. And it's really hard to argue with these sorts of things, especially as you begin instantiating many of them. Each time that someone like Elon or someone in his orbit is able to go solve some massive problem, you can't put that toothpaste back in the tube. Someone said yesterday that Mr. Beast went to Africa and he dug a bunch of wells and provided water for millions of people or whatever, thousands of people. And like once he's done that, he does it for this craven like virality goal. But once he's done that, then it becomes obvious, well, hey, you could just have rich people just go do stuff. You don't need to have some sort of government plan or government program to make these sorts of things happen. You can have a government plan or a government program that says this person is going to go do this thing, and then you just go do it. But it requires an efficient, properly functioning government. And the people who are growing into wealth and power want to see an efficient, properly functioning government because there are existential crises staring us down all over the place. And these problems aren't being resolved because we're doing things like sending $42.5 billion to not get a problem solved, when there's an extremely easy, immediately available solution. All you need is the federal government to not be actively fighting against people who are trying to solve the problems. As the problems get worse, the demand for them to simply be solved increases. And it's going to increase to a tipping point, and that tipping point is already happening. Another story. Another one of these, Elon continually applying the pressure and steadily ramping it up. Robert Kennedy Jr. posted, Puerto Rico's primary elections just experienced hundreds of voting irregularities related to electronic voting machines, according to the Associated Press. Luckily, there was a paper trail, so the problem was identified and vote tallies corrected. What happens in jurisdictions where there is no paper trail? U.S. citizens need to know that every one of their votes were counted and that their elections cannot be hacked. We need to return to paper ballots to avoid electronic interference with elections. My administration will require paper ballots and we will guarantee honest and fair elections. Obviously, it's not going to be his administration. Although, I would say after J.D. Vance, my next most likely president or vice presidential candidate right now would be RFK. I think purely for electoral reasons, it would be a pretty wise move, because RFK is not going to be pulling away Biden voters. There's a few Biden voters who might vote for RFK, but of the votes that RFK would swing, I'd say 75% of them at least would be Trump votes. Taylor Brown says, feels like RFK is playing a role here as well. Correct. He's kind of doing the same thing that Vivek was doing. Push these things out into the conversation, amplify these things, make sure that they don't just like run out of the news cycle quickly and never come back. Keep the pressure up. Keep people talking about it. Keep this thing on the radar. And Elon is doing his job and signal boosting it. We should eliminate electronic voting machines. The risk of being hacked by humans or AI, while small, is still too high. This is a great little while small here. I said, and so it begins, because now that Elon has called into question our elections, he's going to get all the people all the worst people are going to be mad at him. And the regime in their fighting back against him, this is all the more reason they're going to keep escalating. The problem is this is a deal with the devil for them, because as they continue to escalate against Elon and Trump, they continue to undermine their own credibility, their own authority, and their own ability to project power. The more that they attack people like Elon and Trump, the more they encourage people to defect from their coalition. They're stuck between a rock and a hard place. Jack's complete lack of surprise at Whiskey Priors on Twitter. This is a good guy. You should go follow him. Recovering ANCAP. He says, those commas are there so you correctly ignore what's between them. Yes. Little plausible deniability here. So, to actually solve these kinds of problems, if we were to take them seriously and seek to address them, one of the big things standing in the way of so many of them is regulation. It basically blew America. Regulation, State Department, all the different executive branch bureaucracies that have functionally operated independent of the president, even though they're not supposed to, and there's abundant basis for them to be reined in. And the entire Project 2025 initiative, along with the support that they're receiving from a number of other sectors, the U.S. investment banking sector, the Silicon Valley sector, a lot of the defense industry, a lot of these different segments of the economy are very much interested in decreasing regulation and actually solving a lot of these problems, because many of these problems are beginning to actually affect their own bottom line. They're starting to recognize the potential existential crises. They don't want a complete economic collapse. They don't want revolution and rebellion and revolt, and they can see what time it is. They don't want the U.S. losing its standing in the rest of the world as all these other different nations are beginning to create various alliances and do things that Blue America doesn't want them to do. But Blue America lacks the sand in their pants to actually swing a big stick. They don't really have a big stick anymore. They've just got a loud bark. Josiah says RFK has the Instamoms on lock. Right, yeah. That's an extremely important demographic, the Instamoms. The entire world rotates around the Instamoms. So in that sense, I honestly almost think that RFK would be better than JD Vance for that reason. I'm I think JD Vance and Trump is a power ticket, but RFK for electoral reasons could be. I really wouldn't be surprised to see him be the pick. So speaking to the regulation, we talked about a couple days ago. We talked about the all-in guys. Trump mentions them in his conversation with Logan Paul. Talks about the super geniuses and the money that they gave him. And him sitting there having the conversation with them about regulation being one of the big things that they want to see eliminated. And we're beginning to see, let's see, how would I set this up? So Jason from the 2-Bit Podcast has his idea of build a Caesar that he coined recently, where you're seeing these little mimetic, explosions. You've got Milei, you've got Bukele, you've got Wilders. You've got these other right-wing guys that are each in their own domain. They're like the right wing of their own domain that is taking massive action on specific subjects. They don't have to be Caesar across all domains. They just have to be Caesar in their own domain. And if they're Caesar in their own domain, then they begin to actually provide a case for that to be imported. Look how well it worked there. We can import that. And as it begins to be more and more effective, then more and more people begin to demand it. You start getting the social pressure looking for it. It'll either be today or tomorrow, depending on my schedule today, or well, if not today, then tomorrow. We're going to do the breakdown of the Tucker Bukele interview. And by the end of it, it's so clear to me that this is true statesmanship. And as more and more people see this and see the fruit of it, they're going to want it. Demand for statesmanship is at an all-time high. And we're beginning to see the supply rising. So one great example of this build a Caesar phenomenon was Elon Musk's takeover of Twitter. Got a great thread here from Sean Kelly at SeanPK on Twitter. He says Elon Musk fired 80% of Twitter, 6,500 people, and everyone thought Twitter was doomed. He was right, everyone was wrong. It's the management masterclass of the decade, and every entrepreneur must understand why it worked. Disclaimer, the intention of this thread is not to support layoffs. They suck for everyone involved, especially those who are let go. Rather, my objective is to show that often it's best to zig when everyone else is zagging, and that smaller teams often perform best. I don't really feel bad for the people who were laid off from Twitter. After the right sizing, Twitter has rolled out more features than they ever could before. Andre Karpathy, who worked directly under Elon, explains 4 ways Elon runs his companies differently.
Definitely, Elon runs his companies in an extremely unique style. I don't actually think that people appreciate how unique it is. You sort of like even read about it and so much, you don't understand it. I like to say that he runs the biggest startups. So he likes very small, strong, highly technical teams. I would say at companies by default, they sort of like the teams grow and they get large. Elon was always like a force against growth. I would have to work and expend effort to hire people. I would have to basically bleed to hire people. And then the other thing is that big companies, usually you want, it's really hard to get rid of low performers. And I think Elon is very friendly to, by default, getting rid of low performers. So I actually had to fight for people to keep them on the team because he would by default want to remove people. So keep a small, strong, highly technical team, no middle management that is kind of like, definitely Elon.
Okay, so what we're seeing here is, what I'm taking away from this is when Elon gets his mindset on reforming something, this is the way he's thinking. These are the things that he's going to prioritize. So if he's going to throw his weight behind the executive branch and everything that follows from that, these are the sorts of things that he's going to want to see. And it just so happens that these are the sorts of things that the Project 2025 people want to see. And everybody else in Elon's orbit who's following his lead. Old Head Norwood Groiper 2016 says, Q said Trump is going to pick RFK. If this happens, it will be the fulfilling of a great boomer prophecy. Okay, now I want to live in that timeline. I want to live in that timeline where that actually happens. Just because of the... I want to live in interesting times. I want to be entertained. I want to be amused. Javier says, no offense, but RFK is poison. He's a left fugee. The left left him. He's a shitlib through and through, just my opinion. Yeah, I agree. I think that's totally the case. I think that he's I've heard from people relatively close to him that he's a sincere, authentic person. He's also a Kennedy. He's grown up as a Kennedy. He's been a Kennedy his whole life. So he's lived within the entire milieu of the regime. So it's going to, by default, it's going to color everything he sees. It's the whole world that he's known. I also think he's been very bold in a lot of the causes that he's taken up, particularly with, shall we say, his family history. That would be, of anybody, if anybody understands the potential consequences of fighting against the power, it would be RFK. And I do think that it's very clear that he's an enemy of the regime, and he sees himself as an enemy of the regime. He wants to see a different type of regime than I do, but he doesn't want the same regime. So he's very clearly an outsider from that perspective. And I also think that VP is an easy way of getting a big political win making a big electoral move that can also be sidelined relatively easily. Like we're seeing what's happening with Kamala Harris. She's just like, nobody cares what's happening with Kamala Harris. She's been completely sidelined. So I think it's two things. You as VP, you can either have someone who's just a figurehead that's completely sidelined and has no real influence. You're just capitalizing on their name recognition. And you could set them on going and doing speaking tours and advocating for your agenda and whatever. And he holds a lot of weight with a lot of people. They trust him and like him. They think he's a presidential candidate who is on steroids. Like I gotta like him just because of that. But I think in a practical sense, he can be sidelined relatively easily. He can have relatively little influence. And there's a lot of things that many of his biggest soapboxes, the issues that are most important to him, are things that I would be like, yeah, absolutely. I'd like you to throw your weight behind this sort of agenda and occupy yourself with, I don't know, reforming the health bureaucracies or whatever, and then everyone else can deal with other things. Because I also do think that there's a legitimate case to be made that it would be a poor political move to pull JD Vance out of Congress and put him elsewhere, because then he's probably going to get replaced by someone worse than him. So it's good to have allies like that in Congress as well. So I could see both sides. I think it's a good thing and it's a bad thing in both senses. Okay, so continuing with the thread. So 1, small, strong, and highly technical teams. Elon is against large teams. To give you a context, look at the people he has fired over time. Why? Because he understands Parkinson's law pretty well. Let me explain. So here it says, in an email to senior Tesla executives last month, Musk said he wanted to be, quote, absolutely hardcore about headcount reductions. More than 20,000 people may have been laid off in that first round of headcount reductions, Bloomberg reported last month. So he fired the Tesla's entire supercharger team. He fired over 80% of Twitter employees. He has no problem being the you're fired guy. This is a really good point, Kate. She says, RFK getting the VP ticket is the boomer equivalent of our millennials and Zoomers wanting Barron to take the reins as president one day. The slighted father being vindicated by the succession of his son. That's a really, really good point. I never thought about it that way, but that's a very good point. Shout out to Kate. But yes, RFK is a boomer shitlib, but not who I'd want as VP. There's an interesting story going on with Barron right now, by the way. Barron and Martin Shkreli. I need to understand it a little better before I could talk about it. But if you want to go look into it, you can. It's a little over my head. I need to talk to people who know more about this stuff than I do before I can really weigh in on it. But there's a very interesting thing going on. Anyways, Parkinson's law states that work expands to fill the time available for its completion. So no matter how many people you allocate to a task, they will feel busy. Due to the excess of time, they'll start focusing on less important tasks. Small teams help you avoid that. So if you allot 8 hours for a task to be completed, it's going to take 8 hours to finish it. If you allot 3 hours, it's going to take 3 hours. If you allot 2 hours, it's going to take 2 hours. You just, like, this is a well-documented phenomenon. You've probably experienced it in your own life. Number 2, Elon wants the workplace to be vibrant. Elon wants to nurture activity and people doing their best work. So people are always pacing around, coding, and prioritizing getting real work done. There's not much pampering. You're simply expected to do great technical work. Imagine that.
For sure. Number 2 is kind of like the vibes of how everything runs and how it feels when he sort of like walks into the office. He wants it to be a vibrant place. People are walking around, they're pacing around, they're working on exciting stuff, they're charting something, they're coding. He doesn't like stagnation. He doesn't like for it to look that way. He doesn't like large meetings. He always encourages people to like leave meetings if they're not being useful. So actually you do see this, or it's a large meeting and if you're not contributing and you're not learning, just walk out. And this is like fully encouraged. And I think this is something that you don't normally see. Maybe part of that also is like, I think a lot of bigger companies, they like pamper employees. I think like there's much less of that. It's like the culture of it is you're there to do your best technical work. And there's the intensity and so on, for sure. Number 2 is kind of like
So Sean continues, there are also no large meetings. Anyone can walk out of a meeting if they're not contributing or don't feel like they need to be there. According to Elon, small teams make quick and independent decisions. Look at the email he wrote to employees. So this is April of 2018 to all Tesla employees. By the way, are a few productivity recommendations. Here are a few productivity recommendations. Excessive meetings are the blight of big companies and almost always get worse over time. Please get rid of all large meetings unless you're certain they're providing value to the whole audience, in which case keep them very short. Also get rid of frequent meetings unless you're dealing with an extremely urgent matter. Meeting frequency should drop rapidly once the urgent matter is resolved. Walk out of a meeting or drop off a call as soon as it is obvious you aren't adding value. It is not rude to leave, it is rude to make someone stay and waste their time. Don't use acronyms or nonsense words for objects, software, or processes at Tesla. In general, anything that requires an explanation inhibits communication. We don't want people to have to memorize a glossary just to function at Tesla. Communication should travel via the shortest path necessary to get the job done, not through the chain of command. Any manager who attempts to enforce chain of command communication will soon find themselves working elsewhere. A major source of issues is poor communication between departments. The way to solve this is to allow the free flow of information between all levels. If, in order to get something done between departments, an individual contributor has to talk to their manager, who talks to a director, who talks to a VP, who talks to another VP, who talks to a director, who talks to a manager, who talks to someone doing the actual work, then super dumb things will happen. It must be okay for people to talk directly and just make the right thing happen. In general, always pick common sense as your guide. If following a company rule is obviously ridiculous in a particular situation, such that it would make for a great Dilbert cartoon, then the rule should change. If there is something you think should be done to make Tesla execute better or allow you to look forward to coming to work more, same thing in the long term, please send a note to so-and-so. Thanks for being such a kick-ass team and accomplishing miracles every day. It matters. We are burning the midnight oil to burn the midnight oil. This is a good leader. There's a reason he has been as successful as he is. You are a micro brain if you think that that Elon is just some propped up product of the system. You can't believe anything if that's the case. Just forego believing anything and go slap your balls in the mountains. Might not be bad. So this is the sort of perspective, if Elon wants to see a properly functioning government, this is what he's going to be looking for. This is what he's going to be throwing his money and his influence behind. And he's such a significant figure in the business world and in the tech community. He's the ultimate mimetic model for the tech community. All of the best leaders want to model themselves after him. So when he enters a domain and he throws his influence into it, this is the direction he's going to want things to push. I'm not saying, Elon's guy gets elected and magically everything gets reformed and functions like a well-oiled machine. I'm saying this is the direction he wants things to go. So if he's going to put his reputation and risk his own wealth and his own physical safety for something, it's going to be because he sees this potential in it. Skip layers and stay ultra connected to the teams. Companies have different layers you need to cross to get in touch with the CEO, but Elon knows that only the person working on the project knows it best. So he spends 99% of the time talking to them, not VPs and directors. This is a direct war upon managerialism. Elon is the ultimate anti-managerialist.
50 people in the room, and so on. Maybe the last one that is very unique and very interesting and very strange is just how connected he is to the team. Usually a CEO of a company is like a remote person 5 layers up who talks to their VPs, who talk to their reports and directors, and eventually you talk to your manager. That's not how he runs companies, right? Like he will come to the office, he will talk to the engineers. Many of the meetings that we had were like 50 people in the room with Elon. He talks directly to the engineers. He doesn't want to talk just to the VPs and the directors. Normally people would spend like 99% of the time maybe talking to the VPs. He spends maybe 50% of the time, and he just wants to talk to the engineers. So if the team is small and strong, then engineers and the code are the source of truth. And so they have the source of truth, not some manager, and he wants to talk to them to understand the actual state of things and what should be done to improve it.
Number 4, remove bottlenecks whenever possible. Elon is so involved that he removes bottlenecks as soon as he learns about them. A company usually goes through tons of exercises and documented procedures to solve an issue, but when Elon learns of them, he tries to solve immediately.
And when so maybe if he talks to the engineers and they bring up that, what's blocking you? Okay, I don't have enough GPUs to run my thing. And he's like, oh, okay. And if he hears that twice, he's going to be like, okay, this is a problem. So like, what is our timeline? And when you don't have satisfying answers, he's like, okay, I want to talk to the person in charge of the GPU cluster. And like someone dials the phone and he's just like, okay, double the cluster right now. Like, let's have a meeting tomorrow. From now on, send me daily updates until the cluster is twice the size. And then they kind of like push back and they're like, okay, well, we have this procurement set up, we have this timeline, and NVIDIA says that we don't have enough GPUs and it will take 6 months or something. And then you get a rise of an eyebrow. And then he's like, okay, I'm gonna talk to Jensen. And then he just kind of like removes bottlenecks. So I think the extent to which he's like extremely involved and removes bottlenecks and applies his hammer, I think is also like not appreciated. So I think there's like a lot of these kinds of aspects that are very unique, I would say, and very interesting.
So that's that thread. This is, I just say what you want about his personal life or his own proclivities or his belief system or whatever. I've got a tremendous amount of respect for the man as an executive, as a trailblazer, as I believe, a net positive force for good. So speaking of net positive forces for good, good friend of the show, Auron McIntyre. He says, Curtis Yarvin has offered variations on the same solution for decades, but the problem is always the same. Curtis Yarvin was the inspiration for the name of the show, ultimately. I went down a deep Curtis Yarvin rabbit hole as I was entering my post-libertarian phase of life. And he very much king-pilled me. And then now I seek to king-pill others, but I've appropriated the king pill term, and I'm trying to fill in some of the gaps that Curtis has in his reasoning, some of which Auron is identifying here. He says he recognizes the Odysseus problem, but attempts to solve it by creating a mediating external sovereignty in the same way libertarians always end up accidentally recreating the state, which is particularly ironic given his skill in pointing out this flaw of constitutional republics. Again, we see the failure of materialism, raw systems analysis, and manipulation. Sovereignty is only ever bound by opposing spheres of power, and those spheres must draw on something foundational and organic and those spheres must draw on something foundational and organic to the society to be effective. Politics is the nexus of mystical belief, identity, economics, and raw power. You can't reduce it to any one of these aspects and truly understand the structure. Now, partly I just wanted to highlight this for the fact that Auron has a way with words. I'm sitting here thinking, like, making this observation and then just being like these clear, concise observations and just writing them out like this is something I aspire to. I get the little flashes of insight every once in a while and the words flow, but Auron's nailing it. And this is the flaw in, like, I think that Yarvin's patchwork idea and the model that he's built out, I think is very interesting. Like, even just as a piece of like science fiction. I think it's very interesting. I think he's very sincerely trying to grapple with this and trying to think of solutions. And I think there's parts of these things that can be part of a solution. But ultimately, the problem with the state of Western governance is not that we just haven't found the right system yet, that we just haven't engineered the correct outcome. And if we just get the correct pieces placed in the correct order, then we're going to get the right outcome. That's not how the world works. Because the world is not, what did he say here? Materialism, raw systems analysis, and manipulation. This is only one part of the world. It's important to have systems with proper incentive structures and to make them run efficiently, honestly, and to create. It's not that systems don't matter. It's that finding the right solution isn't just a matter of creating the right system. Ultimately, it's going to come down to the people in the system and the quality and caliber of their character. Are they following the truth, the capital T truth? Are they embodying it themselves in what they do? Do they have humility? These are all spiritual questions that have to be embodied from the bottom up. You can have a system that exists to cultivate something that is already there, but that thing has to be there in the first place. And it's really easy for us to fall into one side or the other. The system doesn't matter. All that matters is the people in it. Or if you make the right system, then it'll make the people better. Neither one of those is true. You have to have both. There's nothing wrong with innovating on existing systems, coming up with better ways of integrating technology as we've discovered it, and incorporating it to make a better functioning system, to increase proper incentive structures. These are all great, good things. We need people working on that. We also need people on the other side who are encouraging people on an individual basis to become better, to fit into the system and to maximize the system to the best possible extent that they can. We need each node on the hierarchy to be functioning properly, and we need the hierarchy to be structured properly. Hierarchy is a natural thing. Human beings naturally fall into hierarchies. So that has to be facilitated. At the same time, human beings also use the hierarchies to refine and cultivate virtue and character in the people within it. And you have to have a symbiosis between these things. And as one rises, the other's going to fall. As the other falls, the other one's going to rise. There's kind of a constant tension between them, which is actually indicative of the masculine and feminine polarities, which we'll get into in just a minute here with HOMAth. I wanted to also, another friend of mine, Michael Malice, guy I've spent some time with, who I very much enjoyed every conversation I've had, gone out to eat with him a few times and really enjoyed it. He and Auron just had a conversation recently that I want to go listen to. I like it when these two cross over. And so there was a tweet going around here talking about Lord of the Flies. And Shin Bosun says, a funny thing about the Lord of the Flies is it's based on what the author thought people would do. But in 1965, when 6 teenage boys actually did get marooned on a tropical island, instead of tearing each other apart, they worked together to reconstruct civilization from scratch. Shout out White Boy Summer. Malice said, human beings are so driven by narratives over facts that every time I've brought this up, the other person insisted the book is more true. The absolute state of shitlibbery. No. The fictional book is true, not the actual instance in real life. And Pomothonstein said it's a deeply cynical book and its cynicism is totally unwarranted. Why the hell do we insist every public school student read this crap? Why do we want people to believe humans are inherently evil? By the way, another example of this happening with opposite result, Uruguayan Flight 571. I don't know this story here, but I'm sure someone out there does. I think there's an obvious answer to this question. Why do we want people to believe humans are inherently evil? I don't think that needs a lot of elaboration. But Malice accurately identifies this. It provides the Hobbesian justification for the state. If you believe that humans are inherently evil, then you need to have a Hobbesian state, a state that's premised on the idea that human beings are inherently evil and that it exists to constrain all of the evil things, rather than existing to promote the wholesome things. This is it's a difference in frame that you might think is subtle, but it's actually significant. And Auron, insightful and inciseful? What's the word? Inciseful? Anyways, as ever, he says, along this line, people should contemplate the regime utility of making 1984 the only conceivable vision of totalitarianism. Isn't that a banger? If people's only concept of a totalitarian or authoritarian government is 1984 or mid-century Painter Man, it's going to have the same effect of making people yearn for the opposite or the opposition to that, which feeds back into the Hobbesian justification for the state. So then what happens then is people who want a properly authoritarian government become the opposition of the government. So then the government exists to have no government, to eliminate the possibility of a government. And this is what the modern liberal state is. The modern liberal state is an institution that exists to prevent the rise of a government. It masquerades as a government to prevent the rise of an actual government. In any sort of governmental system, you're always going to have a black market, you're going to have the mafia, and you're going to have the state. And the two of them are going to ultimately self-reinforce. They're going to move in this direction of reinforcing one another because the mafia needs the state to exist to create the black market for the mafia to profit from. And the state needs the mafia to exist to create the Hobbesian justification for the state to keep the mafia down. So they need each other, so they're ultimately going to begin cooperating. And I don't see a way, there isn't an engineering technique you can use to eliminate that possibility. It comes back to the individual people and the way that they are cultivated through their communities, through their families. So a state that promotes the family, that promotes the church, and that protects those institutions, that itself can become the vanguard against this sort of thing. And these cycles will continue. There's no utopian. There's no utopian state that we're going to attain simply by crafting the most ideal form of government. We're going to go through the human species goes through generational cycles at the macro level just as it does at the micro level. People have identified all these different patterns, and it's going to happen. We're in a low point now. We're going to rise to another high point. And in that high point is going to be baked the seeds of the subversion and the degeneracy that's ultimately going to take us down into a low point again. We can optimize for the trajectory. I guess it would be here. Up and to the left. Optimize for the trajectory. So make the low points, the future low points, higher than the past high points. And the only way this can happen is, again, on the individual level. Are you optimizing your own trajectory? Are you optimizing the trajectory of your family and your community? Are you building things that will last? Whether it's a relationship or a company or a city or a piece of technology or whatever. Are you building meaningful things that will last? As you begin doing that, you begin cultivating the spirit that will manifest a government that will promote those things. And then everyone will eventually rest on their laurels, and the subversion will continue, and things will cycle down again in the future. And so the best thing we can do is we can perpetuate our traditions, hand them down to our children, and provide them the tools to navigate the future downswings in the cycle. I think I have one more Auron tweet here. Oh, yes. So, Western Lensman. This was from 4 days ago. Left. Today, NBC reports Biden mass amnesty scheme to be officially announced this week. Right. Yesterday, New York Post story blowing the whistle on how illegals are given voter registration forms in 49 states. It's happening fast. So
With the White House's plans, tell NBC News that President and new this morning, multiple sources familiar with the White House's plans tell NBC News that President Biden is set to take executive action as early as Tuesday to protect hundreds of thousands of undocumented spouses of U.S. citizens from deportation. And new that.
So the feedback loop is accelerating. That's what he's identifying here, where you've got the regime, which is personified in Biden, is making this subversive move. They're trying to make this mass amnesty move to obscure whatever shenanigans may end up happening around the election. And they're basically dumping a whole pile of shit in Trump's plate. And again, this sort of thing, like pushing something like this in a way that is going to, it's creating its own backlash. This is the move. This is a move of desperation. It's very much like the story we talked about a few days ago, where Anthony Blinken announced that they're creating some sort of a commitment to back and support Ukraine for 10 years and yada yada yada. And they're essentially just kind of fucking up as much shit as they can on the way out. One interesting thing Trump pointed out in his conversation with Logan Paul is they were talking about immigration and China and the fentanyl crisis. And take this for what you will, but he said that he had a conversation with Xi and they had a plan where he said, reporting what he said, he goes, I told President Xi, what happens when people sell drugs in your country? And he says, death penalty. And he says, well, then can we give the death penalty to the people who are the Chinese people who are importing drugs into our country? And he said President Xi was accommodating to that and that they'd worked out a deal. And this fits the pattern of Trump coming. The same thing he did with Russia, the same thing he did with a number of other states, where he's like, he plays the speak loudly and carry a big stick. So he's not speak softly and carry a big stick. He's speak loudly and carry a big stick. And he's kind of unpredictable. People don't know what they're going to get out of him. So like, we'll just play ball. We'll just play along with what's going on here. I would buy that Xi would be that way. He said that the relationship kind of broke down over COVID, understandably. But he said he had a deal worked out that was going to address this issue. And he passed it off to the Biden administration, and they just trashed it and never called Xi back and never pursued it further. Which I completely buy this, because this is something that's been very close to Trump's heart for a very long time. He campaigned on it originally. He's been consistent on it. All of the people in his orbit are now championing this cause very loudly. Even people outside the strict, like, MAGA heart are championing the cause of restricting immigration, specifically because of the role that the cartels are playing in cooperation with Chinese interests to bring fentanyl across the border. So, Auron says, mass democracy is a solved metagame and the left are playing the winning strategy. And I do agree. This is this type of strategy. This is how you have to do politics. You can't have this baseline of, oh, we have our principles and we accept everyone as we assume everyone else is operating in good faith. And, we have this, we have our constitution and our institutions that depend upon us all embodying our principles and not making undue grabs for power and not actively trying to make the world worse for our own gain. But the one who wants to be left alone is always going to be defeated by the one who wants to take power. So the left is using mass democracy in the way that you would use it as a winning strategy. Now, I happen to believe, for a wide variety of reasons, some public and some not, that this strategy is not going to be a winning strategy ultimately for them. They're sealing their own demise by making these kinds of moves. Because these sorts of moves, with the type of energy that's coming in, these sorts of moves can be very easily undone. I'm not naive enough to believe that it's all just going to be completely reversed and everything's going to be returned to hunky-dory. But the incoming Republican administration is unlike any Republican administration we've ever seen. It's unlike any administration we've ever seen. There's a tremendous amount of building and growing support behind it, specifically toward issues. One of the most prominent issues of all of this is the immigration situation. And people who want stability, they want the plebs, the vast majority of the wealthy, powerful people, they want the plebs pacified. They want everything to just function as normal. They don't want constant chaos and instability and uprisings and riots and threatening the economic stability. They want to keep if you want people in their coon pods, the last thing you want to do is get them all riled up. So even if you're really cynical about all of the elite machinations, you should at least recognize that there's no benefit to them in having mass political instability and growing poverty, and all of these things undermine their power and their influence. They want everyone pacified and going throughout their life being good little tax cows so we can perpetuate the money-making system for everybody. That's what they're optimizing for. So if this means that political ideology has to be pushed aside and we need to do whatever is going to bring back economic and political stability, then so be it. And the worse that the regime makes the situation, the more the demand grows for the situation to simply be fixed. Fire 80% of federal employees. Just get rid of them. Abolish the FBI. Abolish the Department of Education. Abolish the FDA. Just get rid of it. Or completely hamstring it. Get the regulators out of the way. People are getting sick and tired of Blue America. And I'm here for it. MY says, I love how the regime is dealing with the border crisis with stricter airport security and making the tourist visas a lottery system. Taylor says, they've already crossed the Rubicon in so many ways. There is nothing that should hold the reactionary right back. And that reactionary right is expansive. I'll just say that. All right, so we're coming up on the 2-hour mark here shortly. And I've just got this I mentioned the masculine and feminine polarities a little bit ago. And here's some interesting examples of this. I've started following this account recently, Homath. He's got a pretty large YouTube channel, and he's got some really interesting insights. I like his little the model that he uses, where he's anonymous and he has his camera pointed down and he sketches stuff. And he's also he's becoming a Twitterer. So there's a video that was posted by one of these viral accounts, Charming Misogynist, Female Psychology in 17 Seconds. So we're going to play this video and then play his comments and comment on his comments. Commentception. All right.
If I wasn't gay, would you sleep with me?
Probably not.
Why not?
You have really pretty eyes. You do have really pretty eyes.
Thanks.
I'd sleep with you.
Thanks.
I suppose I'd sleep with you.
If I wasn't gay, would you sleep with me?
How she switched so quickly. So Homath says, watch this like 400 times. Look at how fast she changes her decision about a potentially life-altering decision. Nearly all women, as well as weak, fearful men, unconsciously decide what is good, bad, true, and false by consensus. His value went up because he got approval. So as soon as she's giving her authentic response at first, and it's, yeah. And her friend's like, you have really pretty eyes. Oh, yeah, you do have really pretty eyes. I would sleep with you. Yeah, I guess I'd sleep with you too. Just on a dime. And I'm assuming she's not exactly a Rhodes Scholar. But this phenomenon is a very distinctly feminine phenomenon. Women determine these things by consensus. They're wired to be tapped into the consensus and want to embody the consensus, want to be a part of the consensus. When this becomes toxic in the devouring mother sense, then it becomes like the oppression of consensus, forced, mandated consensus. The mother who cares so much about the potential and growth and authenticity of her child that she stamps it all out, just crushes it. She smothers it to death. That's kind of why I like Smothering Mother almost better, because devouring has this really kind of malevolent connotation, whereas smothering is more, it's a little softer, which really embodies the way it manifests. It doesn't manifest in this monstrous, overtly evil way. It's just kind of like, oh, look at that, the pillow's on your face. Oh, I'm sitting on the pillow. Look at the, oh, you're not kicking anymore. Ah, good, problem solved. So tying this in, Vorpalinville says Homath is secretly mega-based. His main content is mud gender war stuff, but when he talks off the cuff on certain issues, he really cuts to the quick. That's what I've gathered. And I've talked to some people who know him personally, and I've heard the same thing. He's someone I think it'd be really interesting to have a conversation with him about some of this stuff and talk to him about some of the thoughts we've discussed around the generations and the masculinity, femininity, polarities, electricity, and magnetism. I think that'd be an interesting conversation. So I might have a way to reach out to him, so I'm gonna explore that. Oh, Vorpal Anvil. I see it now. So here's another one from him. This is an example of how feminine style thinking feels things while male style measures. I think this is a really, really profound observation. Play this video. Before I start this, it definitely seems as if the grounding mat is doing something. Could be psychosomatic. I don't know. But I am exploding with energy. I don't know if you guys can tell, but I'm feeling it. I've got a clarity of mind that I haven't had in a long time. And I haven't done anything different this morning than I usually would. But I've had my feet on it. I've had my feet planted on it firmly this whole time. And definitely seems to be something to it. I will keep reporting back. If you guys would like the link to it, then to the grounding mat, then I'm going to post it in the King Pill Discord later on. We've got a health channel in there. I'm going to drop it in there for any of you who are in there who want to take advantage of that. I also have to pee really bad, but we're pushing through. We're almost done. So, feminine style thinking feels things, while male style measures things.
30 old, 31 young, 30.
Someone wanted this explained. This is girl math for age. She says 25 old, 28 young, 30 old, 31 young. And it goes on like that. One reason that men and women don't understand each other is that men look at objective characteristics of things and women look at relative ones. So if you're a man, you would say 18 is young and 40 is old and beyond is even older. But if you're...
So when I first heard this, I'm thinking to this point, well, yeah, like, duh. How else would you think this girl math is very cute and charming, but it's retarded. Like, obviously, 18 is young, 40 is older, older than 40 is older. Eventually you get to old. Like, this is how these things work. Listen to how he expounds on the rest of it. I'm curious to hear from the women in the chat as well, what your take on this is.
If you're doing girl math, you would say, okay, this is young, but this is old because I'm not 18 anymore. I'm no longer in this group. But then this is young again because I'm not 30 yet. So it's about where you are in each phase of life. And 40 is young, she says, because I'm not 60. Men usually think this is ridiculous, but it's not necessarily. Women are calculating where they are in relation to others in order to calculate social position and make choices about what to do with their lives, and it can be effective. That's why their minds are so easily hacked by sales. They jack up the price and then they take it back down, and women go, hey, relative to normal, we're actually doing really well here. If you are a man, you should really figure this out. You should really figure out how women think. It really changes things. Use this. Analyze it.
So Melaforte says, sounds right. So once he explained that, I was like, oh, I get it. Here I am, grug brain over here. Linear ages. But they're looking much more, men are looking on the macro scale, which is their responsibility. Women are looking on the micro scale, the relational scale. So if I'm an 18-year-old woman, then I see a 25-year-old woman as old. She's not in my little circle of friends. She's not on my radar. She's not relationally close to me. She's old. She's moved on to the next stage in life. But once she gets to 26, 27, 28 herself, now she's like, well, I'm not 30 yet. The 30-year-olds, oh, they're old. They're starting to, you're getting close to menopause, and I'm still young. Look at me. I'm in my 20s. I'm still young. I'm just starting my career. My life's right at the beginning. But then she's in her 30s, and oh, my God. Oh, I'm in my 30s. I'm so old. My fertility period is coming to an end. Oh. Now she's old again. But then it's like she gets a second wind. She hits 40. And she's like, well, I'm not 60 yet. I'm a what do they say? A puma instead of a cougar. So it's like a new stage in life. This is really interesting. I think it's a really profound and accurate observation of the difference between the way men and women think. And neither one is more correct than the other. Both of them have their domain. Women are responsible for tracking the social standing of people and tracking the relational values between people. It's like the women exist in the subjective space and they're looking for the objective, where the men exist in the objective space and they're looking for the subjective. There's a natural polarity between them. This is why women are pragmatics masquerading as romantics, and men are romantics masquerading as pragmatics. Because the men are focused on the objective, but they're longing for the subjective. They're looking for the spaces between. They don't see them naturally, clearly. It takes the women in their lives, or the feminine influence or the feminine posture, for them to see the spaces in between, to understand the nuance. Whereas women naturally exist in those inner spaces, the complexities and the nuances and the waves and, the magnetic field. And they're looking for that electric charge. They're looking for the tangible, objective, solid foundation of the man. But just because a man naturally exists in that space doesn't mean he's maximizing it. In order to maximize his so-called objective standing, he has to pursue the subjective. He has to pursue the nuance and the softness and the the intricate characteristics. And when he does that, he finds a woman. Whereas the woman constantly feels this instability. They're more tend to be more anxious. Anxiety is kind of like a feminine coded thing, because they're looking for the walls. They're trying to find the walls. They're trying to find the definition of the space that they're in. They want these borders established, but they're not the ones who are capable of establishing borders. They're not wired to establish borders. They're wired to maintain them. The men establish the borders and the women maintain the borders and maintain the space between the borders. When femininity becomes uncontained by masculinity, then you get the war on borders. Whether it's a national borders or interpersonal borders, you start seeing these degenerate relationships forming, degenerate sexual relationships. This is like untethered femininity. People joke about how lesbians are more real than gay guys. That there's this natural, there's something to this, that the sexuality dynamic is more fluid with women than it is with men, naturally, because they're more fluid that way. They're more given to these this wavy nuance. And it takes the men who establish the borders. And this even comes down to concepts, to words, the definitions of things. Men have to establish them. And then the men have to cultivate the women who will maintain them. The men ultimately maintain the borders by proxy through women. And the men and the women build the borders by proxy through men. And the two of them have to exist together. And this is not strictly sexual either. There's the masculine force and the feminine force, or spirit, or whatever you want to call it, that relate this way on a cosmic level and a microcosmic level. You see the feminine is the receiver and the masculine is the giver. The feminine is the water poured into the vessel, and the masculine is the vessel that provides the shape. And a woman that doesn't have that masculine influence on her providing that shape for her will go crazy. She winds up in the woods whacking sticks on the ground and screaming. I should have pulled up this video today. I'm not going to try to find it now, but there's ever so often you see these clips go around of these like masculinity retreats. And here's a clue. If you want to decide if something is actually a masculinity retreat, then I'll show you the differentiating factors here. If it's actually a masculinity retreat, the guys are likely going to be naked. They're likely going to be running and jumping into things, punching each other, killing things, smashing things. They're going to be sitting around a fire, drinking beer and telling ghost stories. That's a masculinity retreat. A quote-unquote masculinity retreat being sold that is really subversive femininity is these ones where you see these guys who are standing there and like some guy standing next to him and like presses on his chest or something, and he's bends over screaming in agony and like, oh, this is him discovering his manhood or whatever. I'm sure a lot of these people are acting in good faith. I think they're so poisoned by the spirit of the smothering mother that they think this is what men need. No, men don't need some guy to stand there and let them cry it out and scream and let their spirit emerge from their body. That's not how men work. Men need to be around. The way a masculine spirit is cultivated is by being around other men and doing hard shit together and making fun of each other and beating each other up and forcing each other beyond their comfort zone in a really tangible physical way, not just like bending over and kneeling on the ground and screaming. That's the women. When the women go out in the woods and they're screaming and smashing sticks on the ground and summoning deities, and uncontained women always tend toward witchcraft because this is the domain that they are designed to operate within. Women on the earth, men of the heavens. There's a really good book on this called The Language of Creation by Jonathan Pajot's brother Matthew, where he talks about the symbolism in scripture and in creation The masculine is the above, the feminine is the below. The masculine is that which brings heaven down to earth. Or, no, it's the other way around. The masculine is that which brings earth up to heaven, and the feminine is that which brings heaven down to earth. So the feminine grounds. The masculine explodes. The masculine implants the seed in the woman. The woman receives it, and she cultivates it, and she brings life into the world. All right. Last clip, or last tweet of the day. Good friend of the show, Tysonberg, on Twitter, at Tysonberg, Tysenberg. Harry Bergeron. He's a good guy. You're going to be hearing more from him in the not-too-distant future. He's got a great thought to wrap it up today. What if Alt Hist, another good guy in our circles, he says, what do you unironically believe in? If you wake up in the morning, what keeps you going? And Harry Bergeron says that stewardship of the planet is forever divided between good and evil to fluctuating degrees, and everyone is tasked with maximizing the former at the expense of the latter. And we all fail in our own ways, but it's our burden to mitigate those failures starting when we wake up. The stewardship of the planet is forever divided between good and evil to fluctuating degrees. Now, notice he's careful with his language here. He's not implying dualism. But there is a war over the stewardship of the planet. One of them is actual stewardship. The other is death. When you wake up in the morning, you have a choice whether you're going to participate in maximizing the true good stewardship of the earth, starting in your own domain and expanding outward in concentric circles, or if you're going to feed into the pessimism and the cynicism and the doubt and the hatred and the fear and the anxiety and the worry, and it goes on. These are all manifestations of evil seeking to subvert the good. And on an individual level, each one of us has to choose each day when we wake up which side we're going to plant our flag on, and then sustain that throughout the day. What's up, Euthanasia? He says, fine, I just bought a Matt. Yes, I am Matt now. Please do, once it arrives in future chats, let us know. Let us know if you're noticing anything from it. I appreciate you guys hanging out today, coming right up on the 2-hour mark, so we're ending right on time. I managed to time it out perfectly. Josh Ham says, example, my wife's primary responsibility is the children. She will choose them over me, and this is proper. However, my primary responsibility is to my wife, not to the kids. This is correct. I make sure the kids are taken care of by ensuring the wife is properly cared for. She'll drain herself too much. I have to protect her from herself. In this way, she can best fulfill her duties. Yes. I've seen this from even just kind of ordinary normie marriage counselors and that sort of thing. The ones that are really being like really honest. The relationship between the husband and wife, it has to be the foundation. That relationship has to be maintained. That relationship needs to come before the relationship between the mother and the children or the father and the children. Because that relationship is the foundation for the healthy children. And if the wife isn't being fulfilled, if she's not being cared for, not being provided for, then she's not going to be a good mother. She can't be a good mother. She's not being equipped and not being equipped and empowered to be a good mother. You have to have that masculine feminine role properly ordered, because then the woman can be properly masculine toward her children. She receives the masculine spirit from her husband and passes it to her children. Their children are feminine to her. So the man needs to be receiving that masculine spirit from someone else, from his father, from his spiritual father, ultimately from Christ, who receives it from his father. This is the proper order of things. This is the proper hierarchy. Please like the stream. Please share it. Subscribe to the channel. Hit the notification bell for whenever we go live. You'll hear about it. Hype Man is here. Taylor Brown. Join the Discord, kingpill.com. Please join the Discord. Come hang out with us. We had a great answer to prayer this morning in there. I don't know if we want to talk about it publicly, so we'll just say there was a fantastic answer to prayer. And we just had an answer to prayer with my wife. She had a very good call. It went well. Good things are coming. I appreciate all you guys. Thanks for hanging out. We'll be back either tomorrow or either this afternoon or tomorrow afternoon for the Bukele and Tucker stream, and then I'll be back tomorrow morning for another episode of the Astrolabe. We are winning. We will win.